is a podcast or something like that. Hey, welcome to Verbal Journal Podcast, episode 140. And it's a public episode, so you might be a member of the public at large or at small or medium. We don't discriminate. And but this is a cool thing, this podcast. You might not even know what it is, honestly. A lot of people don't. Actually, the vast majority of people don't. But the Verbal Journal Podcast is a very important institution in the realm of the What's Therapy extended universe. Extended meaning more lengthwise rather than volume-wise. And we'll get to the horizontal integration segment very soon, actually, in that regard, where we talk more about the main channel. But this is a separate thing also. You know what I mean? I do this podcast every week. 2 out of 3 weeks, it's just for channel supporters. Thank you to the channel supporters, the members and the patrons. I really appreciate the money. I obviously work as a therapist, but life is expensive. So I do appreciate a lot when people give me some of their hard-earned money for these videos. You know, I have music, all this different stuff and so on. So thank you so much. And last week on the episode just for the supporters, we talked about a lot of fun things. It was great. A lot of great things talked about. On the last public episode, we went incredibly long. So that was the longest episode ever. Do not plan on that happening again. Please do not build your day around this podcast being 2.5 hours, because it won't be. It contractually won't be. I've negotiated terms. I'm in a much more powerful spot now with the higher-ups. Not just middle management, but with the higher-ups here at the Podcast Studios Incorporated. So I know what's happening here. So very cool. So one thing I just wanted to say kind of about the channel supporters, the members and the patrons is because I'm trying to raise more money for my life, I decided to do something interesting. I was like, why don't people sign up for the Patreon more? You know what I mean? This is a question that has plagued philosophers for years, for thousands of years. Why don't people sign up for the Patreon as much as they otherwise might? And I realized what the problem is. Okay, because I had these low tiers, $1, you could be a patron, $4, be a patron. I realized it was too cheap. It was not expensive enough. So I thought, okay, well, here's how I'll entice more people. I'll make it more expensive. And so that's what we did. So now those same 2 tiers, and if you've been a part of the tiers, nothing changes. If you've been a supporter, nothing changes. Patreon is cool about that. But I changed it to $3 and $6. So I realized, this is marketing. This is advanced marketing. Okay, so as an exciting new advanced marketing move, we are having an anti-sale where the prices for the Patreon tiers have now been, for a limited or potentially unlimited time only, increased. Okay, from $1 and $4 to $3 and $6 for these 2 foundational support levels available at the Patreon. Obviously, as I said, does not apply to people who have already signed up. Your prices are not changing. I didn't have to jack up the prices for the people who are already supporting. But I did raise them. I saw $1. No one's going to sign up. It's too cheap. Even $4. So I made it $3 and $6. And I think we're going to see a lot more people signing up now that it's a little more expensive, because I know how it is, okay? I have kind of a posh audience, okay? I know you all. Like, you all like really fancy, nice things, and you don't really appreciate things unless you pay a lot of money for it. So that's why I made it more expensive, $3 and $6. Okay. So thank you all for appreciating all this stuff. Oh, and no one's going to sign up for this, but I'm doing it because I feel like, why not? It's kind of interesting, and I like the idea of it. I'm offering 30-minute video calls. This is not a joke. A lot of the things I say are jokes, so it's hard to tell sometimes. But if you'd like to talk with me about an art project you're working on, not therapy, obviously. I'm not going to be doing therapy with folks over the internet like this. But if you want to talk to me about an art project and you are rich, Don't do it if you don't have a disposable income. It's not worth it at all. But if you want to talk to me about painting, video making, you want my thoughts on a script you wrote, you want my thoughts on a video you made, whatever, you want to talk about art and stuff, hit me up. Only if you're rich. Again, seriously. $75 for a 30-minute video call. I can't afford that. You know what I mean? Unless you're like going to help me with a medical issue or something, which I will not be helping you with any medical issue. So that's exciting. Okay, enough self-promotion. Self-promotion. Just kidding. Not enough self-promotion. Another cool thing that's happened is the Clips channel hit 100 subscribers, actually 101 now. And we have a clip that hit 2,000 views about Sir David Rubin and his little gang of 8, or gang of 4. So yeah, again, no, YouTube does not want people to watch that one, I guess. Okay, this Mark Zuckerberg. Anyways, so great that the Clips channel. Now it's just a matter of how long until the Clips channel overtakes the main podcast channel. Because it is cool. Also, people are finding the Clips channel who don't know about What's Therapy in the main channel. So that's kind of fun to be exposed to a new audience. I'm doing a lot of back and forth with the screen here. I hope you like that. But it's part of the flow. All right, so now we're still in the introduction. Let me tell you what we're going to be doing here. We'll be doing the horizontal integration segment, as I foreshadowed, where I talk about the main channel. We'll talk about Pluribus. Spoilers, you'll skip that section if you haven't seen Pluribus. Even if you think you're not going to watch it, skip that section if you haven't seen Pluribus, because you are going to watch it. And I'm going to be talking about the new episode. As I've been doing on this podcast, I've talked about every single episode the Sunday after it airs. Maybe the Saturday or the Monday once or twice. And so all my thoughts about Pluribus, like my very raw, sometimes imperfect thoughts, have been recorded, and I will probably release a compilation of that on potentially the main channel I'm considering. Let me know what you think about that. After the Pluribus segment, we'll get into the Goodish news segment, where we fly through the headlines of the day, only the Goodish ones. Then we'll be checking in with our boys in brown. You'll see what that means if you don't know already. We'll do a brief research segment, nothing like the last public episode. We'll do a meditation segment where you and I can meditate together. And then we'll do an image segment, an audiovisual segment. We'll do some follow-ups. We'll obviously check the mailbag. verbaljournalpodcast@gmail.com is, I think, the email address. verbaljournalpodcast@gmail.com. Yeah. And then we'll do an improv segment, of course. We've been doing the improv. I posted an improv compilation just for the patrons and the members of all the improv I've ever done on this podcast. It was amazing. It was exactly 1 hour long. And then I'll say thank you to all the patrons and the members. And that could be you next week. I'm going hard on the salesmanship. It's rough out here. Okay. So let's get on into the horizontal integration segment, where I talk about the What's Therapy channel. This segment is made possible through the alliance of What's Therapy Corp. Inc. Initiative.inc. and Verbal Journal Podcast. Verbal Journal Podcast. That's it, actually. No, there's an Inc. There's an Inc. also. Limited Inc. Registered. So yeah, the cool thing about the horizontal integration segment is I check in on the main channel. And today what we'll be checking in on is a community post. I did a community post. I said, what's your position on fascism? Because I thought that'd be nice to kind of just do a poll, see where people stand. Now, the first thing you have to notice, okay, yes, obviously the vast majority of people identify as having an anti-fascist position, as being more in the anti-fascism realm. And that was what I wanted to sort of ask about, to sort of get a read on. But you'll have to notice we got tie for pro-fascism and neutral fascism, and that's not too surprising. Obviously, my channel, all my videos are fairly consistent in my approach to politics, so I obviously push away people who think that, the government should be used as a weapon against vulnerable people or stuff like that, or people who don't care about the government being used as a weapon against vulnerable people. I tend to kind of go for like, hey, we should take take what we've got and try to support people who don't have enough type of vibe. So it's not obviously surprising that I don't have a lot of pro-fascist or neutral towards fascism people in my audience. But I thought the benefit of this also was just to let people click a button and identify themselves with the position of anti-fascism, because you wouldn't normally do it. Most people are like, I don't think about that stuff. But it's good to like do it if you had to choose, to remind yourself, you know, I'm not neutral. And I thought it was a useful poll because it elucidates the fact that there's really three options here. There's no other options except saying, what's fascism? I don't know. You know what I mean? So great comments. A lot of people, you know, I love my audience. Yeah, well, and love is a strong word, but I like my audience. You all are very nice and lovely. You know, obviously there were a few people who disagreed with the consensus here. This person was unsure of the definition that we're using. And now we actually do have a video on the Clips channel where I go into the definition of fascism. But I didn't feel like I needed to link it necessarily, because it just didn't seem super necessary, I guess. But if you see here, you see defining fascism and Antifa. So we talk about fascism there, and I go into some definitions. Obviously, we used to have the word of the week segment here, so that's what that was. I know it's like whatever, like cliche to cite Wikipedia. But at the end of the day, like the Wikipedia definition is perfectly good. You don't have to go with the Wikipedia definition, but you do have to like settle on some definition. You know what I mean? You can't necessarily. It's bad faith to like not engage in a discussion out of a refusal to define the terms. So you can say, what does fascism mean? But you do have to ultimately. You have to either define it as something or give yourself some explanation, or like give an explanation of why there's no definition. So, far-right authoritarian ultranationalist political ideology, characterized by support for a dictatorial leader, centralized autocracy, militarism, forcible suppression of opposition, belief in a natural social hierarchy, subordination of individual interests for the perceived interests of the nation or race, and strong regimentation of society and the economy, opposed to communism, democracy, liberalism, pluralism, and socialism, far right of the traditional left-right spectrum. So views violence as means of national rejuvenation, often advocate for establishment of totalitarian one-party state, dirigist economy. I don't actually know what that is. Where the state is. Okay. Market economy with the state playing a strong directive role through market intervention. So you know what I mean? Like autarky, palingenesis, national rebirth, and modernity when it is deemed compatible with national rebirth. So this is, you know, what fascism means. Center around in-group, out-group opposition, demonization of others, such as various ethnicities, immigrants, nations, races, political opponents of fascist parties, religious groups, and sexual and gender minorities. So yeah, I don't, since the end of World War II, fascism has been largely disgraced. Yeah, this is an important point I made when I talked about it. Like, people used to, before Hitler, they used to be like, hey, yeah, I'm a fascist. It was like, you know, it was like something people would call themselves. Like, I am a fascist, actually. And obviously these weren't necessarily the most kind and empathetic people, but like, they weren't necessarily like people who wanted to like work the night shift at the gas chamber, you know what I mean? Or the day shift. They're both pretty bad. So it's just people could kind of hide with like plausible deniability, not really know the outcome of their beliefs, but now we do, have a much better idea. So, anyways, yeah, fascism, you could obviously define it differently, but that is a fairly solid definition, I would say. So, I'm against that. I don't think it is a meaningless word. Was there one other thing I wanted to respond to? I feel like there was one comment I was like, was it this one? Yeah, I guess maybe it was. Like, oh yeah, this person is just like, yeah, they're trying to sort of go back to fascism being an okay thing. Yeah, and I disagree. I actually think public health initiatives are not fascism. I think they're quite different. And it is necessary for a government to exist to assert public health. And I just want to make it very clear, like, authoritarian is very different than authority. So it's not okay to be authoritarian. Like it's okay to like tell your kid. If your kid's gonna cross the street and get hit by a car, like you should grab their arm. It's also okay to tell your kid like what they can and can't eat. Like these are not authoritarian things, But then if you like tell your kid what they can and can't wear, or like up until like a certain age, you tell them what's wrong for them to think or to want to be when they grow up. At a certain point, you're using your authority in a wrong way. I'm using parent as an analogy, but I'm not going to read through the whole comment, but I just think it's very important to not confuse authoritarian and authority. Yes, the state will always have to be authoritative. It cannot be passive. So, but there's a big difference between authoritative, setting the rules, having a rule of law, versus authoritarian, which is subsuming the rule of law to the whim of a dictator or an autocratic, excessively loyalistic party that, works by a lot of the same principles we just talked about of in-group, out-group, distinctions that work in the favor of the elites and lead to mass streamlining of the government in service of a particular very small minority group, such as Aryans or whatever it might be. So yeah, I personally think that governments should work similar. I use the analogies of parents because I do think that it's useful to just look at a system and say, okay, who's in authority here and how should that authority function for the benefit of the fulfillment of all people, given that the authority is fallible also, and that's why I think democracy is useful. So, a lot of anti-fascists. Look out. And I'd like to say I'm not, I don't think it's critically important to say the United States in 2025 is fascist. I don't think that's critically important to say or to believe. It's not a black or white thing. But fascism doesn't just start. So if any of the descriptors of fascism you feel are applicable to our world in 2025, 2024, 3, 2, 1, 2008, you can draw parallels. Like the United States has done a lot of very bad things. I personally think the sending of the military into cities to quote unquote tackle crime, especially when the cities have historically low crime levels, but kind of regardless, I think that's authoritarian. I wouldn't necessarily say that's inherently fascist, but that's something that jumps out to me. But then the suppression of opposition, the streamlining of the government departments, where there's one person in charge of multiple enormous departments, the obvious racism in getting rid of people of color from the government, forcing people of color out of the military through discriminatory grooming standards that literally discriminate against black men, as we've talked about, because black men are way more likely to have a dermatological condition that causes them irritation and pain if they shave too often. That's literally true, so look it up. But there's all these different examples of getting rid of any ways that the government works for more than just white people. And so I do find it rolling back of the rights to essentially rolling back of the rights of minority groups, including transgender people. I wouldn't necessarily call women a minority group, but it seems like the government wants anyone who's not a straight white man to be a second class citizen. And I there's a real aggressiveness in that realm, but all these things don't necessarily have to be fascism per se to be bad. And you can look at things in a very nuanced way and say I don't think we should say, oh, we have fascism, so we should try to get away from fascism. I think we should say what is working and what is not working, and the things that are not working, how could we make them more effective to actually work? And what does working mean, right? Because we had something the world's most hoarding wealth individual came into the government after doing 2 Nazi salutes from the presidential stage on Inauguration Day, 2 very obvious Hitler salutes. The world's most hoarding wealth individual came into the government saying that he was making it more efficient. He now says it's a failure. It was very obvious that the only thing it could succeed for would be getting more money into his pockets and the other pockets of oligarchs and billionaires. But it does raise the question, what is efficiency? You know, like look at the Postal Service, for instance. Like, is it more efficient for the Postal Service to not deliver mail to people who are really inconvenient to get to? Yeah. Unless you consider efficiency to have to take into account the goal being getting people their mail regardless of where they live. So that's just a ridiculous, like, small example. But you could say, like, is it efficient for the government to get rid of all these inspector generals or inspectors general or whatever the fuck they call them? Yeah. And actually, I think that comment about fascism actually said this. And I remember being like a 9-year-old, okay? And being like, why is dictatorship not the best form of government? Because I'm like a dictator in my life and I make all my decisions and that's very good. Maybe government should be run by a really smart little boy like me. You know? I remember feeling that way. I fully remember feeling that way. Feeling like, well, obviously dictatorship is the most efficient form of government. You have one person making all the decisions. And I don't think we live in a current dictatorship. I think we have a loyalism problem where there's a severe lack of diversity of opinion in the ruling party. And a lot of that has to do with the like non-democratic nature of like bodies in the government, like the Senate and the Supreme Court. But as we're seeing right now, as we head into 2026, like the Republican Party is like starting to consider maybe like setting some boundaries with its toxic daddy figure. So like there is a chance that they're realizing like, oh, he's actually a little more like problematic for our goals of maintaining power than we might have otherwise thought. So there, you know, you're seeing, and like, you know, and he's like an obvious like pedophile and stuff. So it, like you are seeing like a little bit of more branching out of opinion, and you're going to see more and more of that as we head into the midterms in 2026. But the lack of diversity of opinion is definitely a huge problem and does lead to like an almost like similar type of system to a dictatorial system because there's such a lack of accountability and responsiveness to the whims of the Republican leader right now. But nonetheless, I don't think, you know, you don't need to call it a dictatorship. Again, it's not the label that's important. But yeah, as I've grown up, I've realized like, oh, like there's some real downsides to that form of efficiency, right? Because like it again brings up the question of like efficiency towards what, and also like aren't I fallible? Aren't people fallible? Like, don't we need a diversity of opinion to and a system of accountability to help keep people in check? So getting rid of inspectors general really bothers me. And I think I'm very shocked at people who I thought were like libertarian leaning, seeming to be okay with the dramatic excessive use of the executive branch, the consolidation of power in the executive branch, and the destruction of accountability in the executive branch. I'm very shocked by that because I like to assume that people come from a place of good faith. So when I know people who have claimed to be libertarian or critical of government overreach, I do wonder why they don't consider this this functioning of this executive branch to be gross overreach of the executive branch in terms of executive orders, in terms of sending, you know, troops into the cities to quote unquote tackle crime, overruling, you know, states' rights whenever it seems to go against the executive branch's agenda. So I see that stuff as authoritarian. I see it as executive overreach, and I see it as steps towards fascism. I also see the racism as a really big problem, and the fact that we have white supremacists in power seems to be a really big problem. Stephen Miller is an obvious white supremacist. Steve Bannon, you know, he's not in power, but he's obviously very powerful. You know, I do think Hegseth is most likely, you know, a Nazi based on the way he talks. But there's a general culture, based on his tattoos as well, there's a general culture of demonizing black and brown people and people of color in general. And I think some people just refuse to open their eyes to that because it's really sad to them to see, and it's hard for them to see. But a lot of other people are quite aware. I did not plan on talking about that so long. I was actually going to talk about that for a very, very short amount of time. So pretend that I only talked about that for a short amount of time. Okay, so next up we talk about Pluribus. So please, for the love of all that is holy, do not watch this segment if you have not seen through episode 7 of Pluribus. Today is December 14th. If you didn't see the episode that came out on December 12th, 2025, skip this segment. I'm looking at you. I'm telling you, spoiler alert. Oh, you're like, oh, I'm not going to watch Pluribus. I'm never going to sign up for Apple TV. You'll find another way to watch it. Don't do this to yourself. Don't fucking do this to yourself. Okay. I'm going to talk about it now. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert. SPOILERALERT. Okay. So, great episode. We saw Carol. I still do have to tell myself not to call her Kim. I'm not going to lie. I do have to remind myself almost every time. Or at least the first time I say her name when I'm talking about her. Say her name. Carol. Okay, so Carol's chilling. She sort of like makes a brief attempt to try to almost like enjoy the fruits of this pluribic world in this episode a little bit. And it was like an empty form of stimulation of these fireworks. We actually also see her express suicidal ideation genuinely. It's not, I don't remember whether she set up the firework to be aimed at herself, but it clearly is aimed at herself, and then she lets it almost hit herself. So she's in a place where she does not care whether she lives or dies, which is really sad. Really understandable. I mean, we all feel really bad sometimes, especially I can only imagine if you're one of like the last Homo sapiens, I guess, on the planet. That would be really concerning, especially when you're not feeling, you're grieving. Obviously, you're not feeling connected to the other Homo sapiens. But let's get into other points. First of all, I just want to say Pluribus is now a segment on the podcast. I was supposed to say that already. As of last episode, it's okay. So with this show, right? She calls up the phone line, and then she gets not Howard Hamlin, but Patrick Fabian and another character doing a recording. Now, probably the recording is done for now because we saw how the episode ended, and so Zosha is back in her life. Probably the pluribic people are going to ease their way back into being comfortable being around Carol. They've built up a little trust potentially by seeing Carol learn to control her emotions, I guess, because when she freaks out, they get hurt. But so we might not see her calling that number in that same way anymore, but if she does, please God, will she ask them to make a shorter recording? Why has she not done that yet? I know I'm not the only one, right? We're all watching, and she calls up the number, and it's this like 20-second recording. And I'm sure Vince did it very, very intentionally, because it does give Carol time to, like, we see her while she's on the phone, we see her attitude, how she feels about the call she's making. In this episode, she puts the phone down, walks away, comes back to it. She's actually, she's doing the scratch-off tickets at first. That was a little confusing. She's winning like a pointless lottery almost. But, I would really like if she would ask them to just do a shorter message, right? She doesn't need the message each time. We did have a car not start, as I talk about with my Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad videos. They have the sort of motifs of cars not starting, engines not starting. We had that twice just in this episode, both with Carol and with Manusos. Carol going to the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum is amazing. And then taking a painting is amazing. I knew she was going to do that. Once she's at the museum, it's like, oh, she's definitely going to take a painting, obviously. Are you kidding me? You think that's not one of the first things I would do if I was in her position? Go to all the museums and take all the best paintings and bring them home. 100%. Once I knew, it would be like day one. It would be like hour 8. And I'd be like, wait a sec, the whole world is up, but they're not going to hurt me. And they'll, all right, yeah. In fact, I would have them deliver it. I would call them and say, deliver me this painting, that first thing. And that's very cool. She had a catalog of the O'Keeffe painting. Now, O'Keeffe is an amazing painter. I'm actually reading a book by the collector Neuberger, Roy Neuberger, famous art collector in New York and the United States. Really great guy, honestly. Just like super nice guy. And he was saying that he met Stieglitz, Alfred Stieglitz, his famous old photographer who married George O'Keeffe. He was much older than her, and he met her when she was like really young and helped her in her career, and they had a nice connection and blah, blah, blah. They wrote letters for years. I read a book about them as well. But yeah, Stieglitz was a douchebag apparently, which is not surprising at all. Neuberger says like he was a young guy, went into Stieglitz's famous gallery, and Stieglitz like basically kicked him out. He was just a douchebag. So anyways, that's really off topic. In this episode of Pluribus, we had the player piano, which is a fantastic metaphor as we see Carol trying to almost like enjoy this world that she's trapped in. Go to this nice restaurant, eat nice food, blah, blah, blah. They have a player piano at the restaurant, which is a piano that plays itself. And that's obviously a great metaphor for this show, as a player piano is able to function better than many human pianists. You see Carol consider tapping the piano for a second, and then she realizes, oh, it's a player piano. I could just put on a song. And it's a great metaphor because it's like, yeah, just like the player piano, these what am I calling them? Alien virus people that are the Pluribus people can do a lot of things much, 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 much better than Carol and you and I. And so it does raise the question, what is our individuality worth compared to functioning? It's a question. It's a difficult question that we'll never answer probably, because it is an ethical question that pits two things together. Self-determination. Yeah, I mean, it's self-determination versus, I mean, it's almost like, to go back to the point about efficiency from the last segment, like, in a sense, like, the Pluribus people obviously do everything much more efficiently, but with the loss of self-determination in a sense. I mean, almost like self-identification, but it's close enough to self-determination. Now, I had an interesting thought watching this, like, with Manousos. It was almost like a Princess Bride homage. I mean, I'm not joking. There was almost like a sense, because the way he repeats "my name is Manousos" over and over while he's like trekking through this forest, and he's trekking through this like crazy forest environment. Obviously, I'm blending two parts of Princess Bride together. There's the Inigo Montoya, "my name is Inigo Montoya," and then there's the guy and the woman going through the forest, Spoiler alert for Princess Bride. But it almost, I'd have to listen to the podcast, see if Vince mentions this and stuff, but I don't know. And I'm not super interested in doing that, but because I'm just interested in like my own reactions to this piece of art. But it did seem like a Princess Bride homage at a certain point. I was almost like, is this an homage? And then with Manousos in the forest, like this scary, crazy forest. So I mentioned Carol making a suicidal decision in this episode, a passive decision to just sit there, or an active decision. I actually wasn't sure exactly how she set it up. And that's, showing this like rock bottom moment for her where she's willing to let her life slip away. And we also see Manousos make a suicidal decision, essentially. I mean, it's really essentially suicidal. It is like it's framed explicitly in the show. Someone explains to him explicitly the danger of this decision, and it's like he's not in any way equipped. So it is really genuinely like almost like a suicidal decision. It's not quite, but it's almost. So we see them both on that level. And obviously, I mean, I did predict that, I didn't predict that he was going to get hurt in the way he did, but I did predict that he was going to be saved by the Pluribus people, because that's just like expected. And they do say at the beginning of this episode, one of them tells him to wave up if he wants help. And I said last episode, I don't believe there's anything supernatural going on in a technical sense. Like, I don't believe they're omniscient, right? I do believe they just have surveillance. I could be mistaken, but I don't believe there's any omniscience going on. It's only apparent omniscience because they are literally everywhere. and can communicate telepathically. Now, you could say that the telepathy is omniscient, there is supernatural, but for the sake of argument, let's say there's some sort of organic reason that they're able to communicate mentally. It's maybe a silly thing to say because it does seem supernatural, but and it was kind of predictable also that when Carol is writing chalk on the pavement, that she's saying, I assume she was writing like "help me" or something, but yeah, writing. I mean, it was nice. It was still very powerful. I think I'm just starting to feel the Apple TV leaking through in some of those moments, where things, yeah, I don't know. But it's like, who's going to give Vince the money to make something like this without any sort of like, hey, make it a little bit, a little bit predictable, or make it expected, and make it wrap up at the end of each episode in some way. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, and I'm not being like critical, but I do wish it would be really cool to see like a billionaire just give Vince like $500 million or something, or like $100 million, and just be like, do whatever the hell you want. So hopefully someone does that in the future. That's not going to be me, unless a lot of you sign up to my Patreon at the new $3 and $6 tiers. All right, so now we are going to go into the Goodish news segment, where we highlight Goodish news of the day. It's really important, and frankly, some of this stuff I dig for. Like, not looking for Goodish news, but just like, I look at a lot of news. And like, AP News and Reuters usually. But I also just like see a bunch of random stuff from like all outlets. Or like a lot of outlets. Even the crazy ones. Like ones where you're like, what? But so some of these I dig for, so some of these you might not know, and it's important to know when good things are happening, even within the ish world. So first up, and we're going to breeze through them. Louvre, sorry, French speaking people, Louvre, sorry, I shouldn't have tried. Louvre workers announced strike over work conditions and security after $100 million heist. I know it says 102 million, but we try to round the numbers out here. We try to not get too much into the data. I said it. Okay. But the thing is, like, museum workers all really need to have better working conditions in a lot of places. It's one line of work where folks have really rough conditions often for their work. Look, I refilled my coffee. Okay. Mom of Caroline Levitt's nephew granted bond after just following orders ICE Gestapo goons arrest, and now Caroline Levitt is obviously Barbie Goebbels, one of many Barbie Goebbels, who is the just kind of a mouthpiece. Obviously, that's what the speaker or whatever their role is titled, White House press secretary. So if you're looking for justice in unjust incarceration of yourself or a loved one due to legal status or questions about legal status, my advice is be related to someone who has a high up role in the current Republican government. U.S. judge orders lifting of Republican President Donald Trump-backed limits on pro-Palestinian Tufts student. So Rumeysa Ozturk just co-authored a piece about how she believed her school should be responding to protesters demanding that they invest differently in a genocidal ethno-state. And she has been continually targeted. So this, to me, does go in the fascism column, just to be clear. Does it tip the scales? Who knows? But it definitely goes in the fascism column to say, okay, we are going to prosecute free speech to this excessive degree. Specifically targeting black and brown people, also specifically targeting people who are for peace and against our country's violence that we fund. But yeah, basically just to crack down on diversity of opinion is already a check in the fascism column. And now you could say, well, does that apply to like the government trying to influence social media platforms to not let people talk about COVID coming from a lab or COVID vaccines not being functional? Well, I would say no, because this is so much more directly the government doing this. But also, if the government does force or incentivize platforms to censor people, which it does, I think you can take issue with that. I think the solution to that, though, is to either give that power to the government or to give that power to the corporations. Like, someone's got to be able to make that decision. And if corporations think it's bad for their marketing to have people saying certain things on their platform, like, how can you argue with that? And if you're saying, okay, we'll give it the power to the government, like, yeah, the government shouldn't be telling people they can't talk about the COVID vaccines in negative ways or talk about COVID potentially coming from a lab. Like, the government should not be censoring people for doing that. That would be completely wrong. I mean, universities can say, hey, this person is not representing our university. We want to fire them because they're saying anti-science stuff and we're supposed to be an academic institution. But, it's just, this is much more blatant censorship where the government itself is targeting and continuing to target Rumeysa Öztürk for months after she was wrongfully incarcerated, wrongfully locked in a jail cell for what she wrote. You know what I mean? Like, sorry, like, guy who talked about ivermectin and got his Facebook taken down, you're not in the same position as Rumeysa Öztürk. You weren't locked up. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills. Trump ally Haba resigns after court disqualified her as U.S. attorney. Aww. Well, there's always Fox News. If she wasn't already working there, I don't know that, And then the judge suggests that Lindsay Halligan, another loyalist, should actually resign as a U.S. attorney. So they are not sending their best. But it is interesting that they're conventionally attractive. Not a coincidence. Not a coincidence that they're white either. Global leaders commit $1.9 billion to eradicate polio amid funding cuts. It's something. U.S. judge rejects Republican President Donald Trump administration's halt of wind energy permits. Judge expands criminal contempt probe over deportation flights, also known as human trafficking flights, saying Christy Nome failed to provide answers. This guy is going to face some serious... oh, no, I'm sorry. Wait, this is the judge. I'm sorry, Judge. I'm sorry. Not all bald guys look the same. Not all bald guys look the same. That's true. That is a fact. But I was talking about Emil Bove, who is a disgusting loser. But good job, Judge. You're not the same guy. Illinois enacts immigration protections amid Republican President Donald Trump's crackdown. So now in Illinois, residents can sue federal immigration agents if they believe their civil rights have been violated after the governor enacted a new law in response to the Republican president's expansion of enforcement nationwide. So this is really important for you all to understand, as well for any of the goons out there to understand. You don't have immunity. You don't have immunity. Even Stephen Miller, even Donald Trump doesn't have immunity. You certainly don't. You work for ICE. You don't have immunity. Look at what's going on with the admiral who wanted to murder some people in the Caribbean. He's getting his heat held to the fire. You don't have immunity. It's just a matter of you don't want to be the last domino to fall. Or you do want to be the last domino to fall, I guess. Massachusetts church keeps anti-just following orders ICE Gestapo goons nativity scene, defying diocese leaders. So it's important for people to be able to express themselves, whether it's at their religious organizations or anywhere else. Democrat wins Miami mayor's race for the first time in nearly 30 years. Now, I'm not a Democrat fanboy, but out of the two major parties, one of them is going along with policies that I do not think help the vast majority of people. And the other one is occasionally standing up to those policies and occasionally doing things that seem more in the service of the greater good. So yeah, Democrats are better than Republicans in every single case. I mean, even like the worst Democrat, like Fetterman. Is there like a Republican better than him? Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. And he's horrible. He's like fucking horrible. He should quit 5 years ago before he even joined, I think. I have to look that up now. Fetterman became senator when? 2023. Yeah, okay, I'm good. Okay. Time flies when you're having fun. U.S. judge blocks Republican President Donald Trump's National Guard deployment in Los Angeles. So basically saying, you can't just send the military into the cities. So I think sending the military into cities is something that should be done only in the absolute most necessary situations. And otherwise, I do think it's a sign of authoritarian and a checkmark in the fascism column to weaponize the military against civilians. North Carolina Governor Josh Stein cancels Medicaid rate cuts amid legal and legislative battles, saying, oops. Judge rejects U.S. bid to toss California high-speed rail lawsuit. Iceland to boycott 2026 Eurovision in protest of go-ahead for the Zionist ethno-state of Israel. And we talked about 4 other countries pulling out last week. Thousands rally again in Bulgaria to demand government's resignation, and then Bulgarian prime minister and government resign after mass protests. So just know this could happen here. This could happen anywhere. It's just a matter of getting our streets to look like that. We don't have to do it now. We could do it anytime. We could do it when a Democrat's in power. Let's say like Kamala Harris wins the presidency next time. We might have to be in the streets. You know what I mean? Like, this is something that needs to be done for Democrats as well as Republicans. Like, the people are the only ones who can run a government. And the government will always inherently stray from the people's will. And people always have to assert their will through their voice and their actions and their demonstrations. I love the word demonstration for a protest, because it's like you're exhibiting something. Wisconsin judge refuses to step aside as requested by former Republican President Donald Trump attorney, saying, who the fuck do you think you are? Georgia Democrat Eric Gisler, I don't know how to pronounce it, I apologize, claims upset in state house win in historically Republican district. So, okay, even Georgia. And the big news of the week, as I've been predicting for months, because it was very obvious that the charges were Darvo bullshit, reversing the victim and offender dynamic against this guy that was wrongfully trafficked out of our country, away from his wife and child, and his job and community, sent to El Salvador to be in a torture prison, and then only brought back because it was so obvious that it was wrongful, then charged with other charges that are unrelated and baseless to try to get him incarcerated and deported for other reasons, just so Stephen Miller can sleep at night, knowing that there's one less person that he doesn't feel represents his own internal sense of self. But Kilmar Abrego was not trafficked out of our country a second time. U.S. judge ordered this man released from immigration detention. Hopefully he can spend time with his wife and child and the rest of his community. And then the federal judge issued an order to prohibit immigration officials from detaining Kilmar Abrego Garcia any further, saying, hey, maybe you guys should get a hobby. Australia begins enforcing world first teen social media ban. Now, I know this is very controversial, but I've looked into it a little bit. I haven't read more than like a couple articles about it. I get that it poses some real free speech issues. But I'm not convinced that under 16-year-olds need to be expressing their free speech online. I'm not convinced. Maybe there can be platforms just for people under 16. You're 15 or younger and you have to be expressing your positions on TikTok and Facebook or whatever, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Like, really? Do you have to? I don't know if that's good. So again, it's an ethical question. It pits self-determination against harm reduction, like almost every ethical question. It's not easy to decide. And I'm sure there are very smart people that are against this. And I'm open to arguments, and I'm open to better legislation. Australia, I think they're a conservative government right now. Like, you could see different governments doing this very differently, but something's got to be done. This is a real public health crisis for our kids, and we can't just throw them in the deep end. I don't have kids, for other people's kids. Indiana Republicans defy Republican President Donald Trump and reject his House redistricting push in the state. Yeah, it's like a huge pain in the ass and like not good politics to do stuff like this. Judge in Oregon blocks arrest of protesters for noise. House votes to nullify Republican President Donald Trump order and restore bargaining rights for federal workers. I think this might have already been impinged upon since this vote or something, but I forget. There's so many different... No, it was a different bargaining rights case. But yeah, this is a big deal that the House just nullified an executive order, I believe. Yeah. So this is good. If you like representative democracy and you don't like authoritarian, like dictatorship light, then you should, it's good for the legislative body to have its say against the executive branch's executive order. Like, that's good. Eurovision winner Nemo, I don't follow Eurovision, I'm just interested in it as a venue of protest against the Zionist ethnic state, to return trophy in protest of Israel taking part in 2026. Now, obviously, Israel is not even a part of Europe, except as being a European colony, so it is bizarre that it's trying to be part of Eurovision. Justice Department again fails to re-indict New York Attorney General Letitia James. And lastly, on the Goodish News segment, Iowa and Ohio, latest states to flip negative on Trump approval ratings. So, things are moving. Things are moving and grooving. Let me just say that. Am I allowed to say things are moving and grooving? I better be. Because they are. They really are. And now you can see I'm opening a few more links, and you might be wondering, why is that? You know what I mean? Why is that? And are you stalling right now is another question you might be wondering. Well, so our next segment is a great one. It's checking in with our boys in brown. And obviously, boys in brown meaning the just following orders fellas in ICE. The Gestapo goon brown shirts who are just looking for a job in a public employment program that we've been picking up with here in the United States. So maybe we should be doing public employment programs for stuff that helps people instead of throwing migrants in cages, as well as throwing citizens and other, semi-citizens, people with green cards, people with legal status, people seeking asylum, people legally seeking asylum, wrongfully being thrown behind bars. Mothers, fathers, grandmothers, children. So I like to check in with the boys in brown, and they have a Reddit page called ICE ERO for Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Removal Operations. I do not know why enforcement is in it twice, but whatever. Will you guys... So they have a page where they ask each other questions like, how do you sleep at night? I'm just kidding. They don't ask that one. And I did already get kicked out of the group for, doing some counterpoints. And not that I use Reddit. I would never use Reddit. I just mean hypothetically. And so, anyways, here we go. 5 days ago, will you guys get Christmas off? And it is funny that it's you guys. So I don't know if this person not work for them. People say no. People say yes. And then you signed up for this. New boots can't expect to get Christmas off. No. So it seems like no is like the no. So just when you all are enjoying your Christmas, just know that there are men who have so few options in life that the best way they can use their time is to help throw migrants in cages, administratively or physically, on Christmas. But it is what Jesus would have wanted, right? That's what he died for, I think, right? I don't know. I'm Jewish. I didn't really learn what he died for. But I don't think... I think it might have not exactly been to throw migrants in cages. I feel like he might have not been such a fan of that. Next up on Checking In With Our Boys in Brown, entrance exam essay. What's the essay about? You're given 25 minutes to type a 200-word essay. Anyone know what the topic is about? Yeah, it's about the first time you realized your father didn't really respect you. Just kidding. And it is funny to just see how mean they all are to each other. They're just mean to each other. So, okay, I don't know. I guess there's not a lot of comments. I can't read all the comments for some reason. I have to log in, but I don't have oh, here we go. What are the chances of me passing? Slim. Why is that? If you claim it's cake and ask your chances of passing, I'm just asking a question, really interested in this position. Is there poly? Yeah, you're allowed to be poly while you're working for ICE. I think you're allowed to be poly. They limit you to 3 romantic partners. But, yeah, no, I'm just joking. They're obviously talking about polygraph because our government uses an anti-scientific test to essentially gaslight people into admitting things when they apply for jobs. And lastly, on Checking In With Our Boys in Brown, stop with your PT questions. This person was very upset. I'm sick and tired of seeing PT questions on here. Yes, you're doing the PT test. I don't give a flying fuck if you're a prior law enforcement, SEAL Team 6, or fitness influencer. Maybe it'll include sit-ups, maybe not. So this is because every 5th post on this page is am I going to have to do sit-ups? Am I going to have to run? So this person's very upset. You know what I mean? They're very annoyed. Treat people, and then first comment, treat people like humans can't be said enough. I guess that was mentioned here. Be a good coworker, maintain your fitness, treat people like humans. Okay, so it was sort of mentioned at the end, but okay. Treat people like humans. Top comment, can't be said enough. Our new hires are severely lacking in this department. I wonder why that might be. Why are the new hires hired under a very vicious and mean administration that's actively making a very broken and mean immigration system even more broken and mean and lacking in empathy? Why would these new hires, who are incentivized by literal propaganda through from the government, why would they be lacking in the ability to treat people like humans? Maybe the fish is rotting from the head. And, yeah. So anyways, it's just interesting to think about. A lot of people very happy that someone finally said it, mostly about the PT complaints. But it is very true that apparently they're having a hard time with new hires not wanting to treat people like humans. Huh. I wonder. It's almost like they're treating people like aliens. Interesting. Next up, we have the research segment, which if you watch the previous public episode, it's not going to be anything like that. Don't worry, we've gotten it under control here. Just 2 articles today. First up, and this is from just a couple weeks ago, egalitarianism is not equality, moving from outcome to process in the study of human political organization. So very interesting. Many traditional subsistence groups have been described as egalitarian societies. The definitions of egalitarianism, especially beyond anthropology, have often emphasized equality in resource access, prestige, or rank. However, there's no human societies where equality is genuinely realized in all areas of life. And this is something Karl Marx talked about, that it's not a realistic goal to have complete equality. There's always differences. There's always differences. You know, we are not striving for equality, at all. In any sort of absolute sense. Equality in treatment under the law, but not equality of outcome, not equality of how much people make necessarily. There's a difference between balance and equality. Okay, let's read the article. Here we demonstrate empirically that nominally egalitarian societies are often unequal across 7 important interconnected domains: embodied capital, social capital, leadership, gender, age/knowledge, material capital, land tenure, and reproduction. We also highlight evidence that individuals in nominally egalitarian societies do not unfailingly adhere to strong equality preferences. We propose a new operational framework for understanding egalitarianism in traditional subsistence groups, focusing on individual motivations rather than equality. Interesting. We redefine egalitarianism societies as those where socio-ecological circumstances enable most individuals to successfully secure their own resource access, status, and autonomy. We show how this emphasis on self-interest, particularly status concerns, resource access, and autonomy, dispels naive Enlightenment notions of the, quote, noble savage, and clarifies the plural processes, demand sharing, risk pooling, status leveling, pro-social reputation building, consensus-based collective decision-making, and residential mobility, by which relative equality is maintained. Very interesting. Very interesting. You can see why that would matter to redefine equality in a way that is most operationally useful to understand people's actual experiences. Can they actually have relatively equal ability to do the things they might want or need to do, to have the things they may need or want to have? So yeah, I recommend reading more about that. Next up on the research segment, a genome-wide association study of a rage-related misophonia symptom and the genetic link with audiological traits, psychiatric disorders, and personality. So apparently misophonia, where you're very sensitive to certain sounds and you have strong negative emotions to sounds and associated stimuli, is something that people talk about sometimes. In this study, they used an unpublished genome-wide association study from genetic service provider 23andMe, wow, on a self-report item probing a single common misophonic symptom, the occurrence of rage when others are eating sounds. And they calculated various correlations, finding that based on the genetics of a common misophonia symptom, misophonia most strongly clusters with psychiatric disorders and a personality profile consistent with anxiety and PTSD. Very interesting. And you got the full article available, but we'll fast forward to the discussion, get a little bit more juice out of it. I love to squeeze the juice out of these articles. And so, yeah, they found various, I don't know my chromosomes and stuff like that, so I'm not going to get into the weeds on that. But they did find associations between misophonia, where you get upset about the sounds of someone eating, and certain anxiety and PTSD issues. So, largely consistent with extant literature. Previous research has reported on comorbidities of misophonia and psychiatric disorders and correlations and so on. They found PTSD. What is AN? What is AN? I'm going to be annoyed if I don't know what AN is. Well, it's just going to find Ann. It's just going to find the word Ann. Okay. No, come on. We got this. We got this. We got this. Come on. What is it? That's the problem of fast forwarding to the discussion. This is not going to work for me. This is not. Oh! Wait, they already mentioned it somewhere. Wow. Okay. This is the problem of skimming articles. This is why you need to really read an article. I'm showing you what not to do, because you need to know everything that they're talking about. What? Where did they first say AN? I feel like I looked everywhere. Wow. Humiliating. Humiliating. It's the one thing I don't know here. And it's not even in this one. Oh, is it anorexia? Okay, I see what it is. So they found, it's even correlated with tinnitus. That's interesting. Anorexia, bulimia nervosa, ADHD, and autism spectrum disorder. Interesting. So they did not show a significant correlation with OCD. That's interesting. A recent study into psychiatric comorbidities of misophonia was performed in a community sample of cases using structured clinical interview and found high rates of lifetime current social anxiety. So very interesting. I mean, I wonder what that means. Like, you're more on edge, you're more stressed, have a higher level of anxiety, and so it's more easy to be aggravated by stimuli like the sounds of someone chewing or something like that. So People with tinnitus but normal hearing thresholds may have hair cell damage or otherwise affected cochlear regions, suggesting that hearing loss does not necessarily lead to loss of hearing performance that can be detected with the hearing test. Okay, interesting. So lots of things to read about there. If you have misophonia or you're interested in developing misophonia, I would say work on having more anxiety if you'd like to, apparently have more misophonia. Cool. So that's great. And now it's time for a great little break in the pod that we do now and we've been doing for a while, which is the meditation segment. And this is where I just, do a meditation. And people say sometimes it's not long enough. I'll try to make it longer. So if you've never meditated before, meditating is just doing nothing, essentially, as far as I'm concerned, where you just kind of sit or stand or lay down or walk or run or swim, and then you just kind of try to not think, and then when thoughts come in, you just go, not right now, thanks. So let's try that. So just kind of, you can open your eyes or close your eyes, just kind of notice things, but not don't notice it so much that you're thinking, you know what I mean? Meditation is very real and studied and empirically found to be useful. And it's not surprising because it's good. It's good to have downtime. Everything needs to have downtime, including podcasts. Name me one other podcast where they take a break in the middle. I can wait. It really is something I'm trying to work on in a non-joking way to just be able to bring more equanimity and to bring better impulse control into my life, to, be okay doing nothing when I have an impulse to do something, and just being okay just sitting or existing. It's easier said than done sometimes, especially when things get stressful or tense. So actually practicing does help. I'm not a big visualization person, but you can visualize stuff if you want. I just like to kind of breathe and focus on the sensations that I'm having and try to see if I can not think for a few seconds. Try to relax your muscles. Meditating is so great because you're not buying or selling anything. You're just existing. If everyone got more into meditation, I think it would make a big impact on people's individual lives and on society as a whole. You know who doesn't want to meditate more than anyone? Someone who's just done something wrong. Because you're just sitting there feeling your internal life, and that's when your conscience speaks up. It's when you have thoughts, and so it doesn't mean if you're having negative thoughts you inherently did something wrong, but I'm just saying, if we had more of a culture of meditation, it's like an inner accountability in a sense. It's not the be all end all, but it's a way to have to face, look yourself in the mirror, internally, which is good. Okay. So now we got the image segment. And this is a great one where we look at images. I remember when we first started the image segment, it wasn't that long ago, probably a year, maybe less. Now it's such a key part of the pod. So first up is, this came out this week, unseen photos of Rosa Parks. Very interesting. And this is Rosa Parks sitting among the crowd at the conclusion of the 54-mile march from Selma to Montgomery in the Alabama state capitol in 1965. And it's very cool to see a time capsule here of folks fighting for people's rights 60 years ago. And they were fighting the good fight, and many of them, would be still fighting that good fight if they were around today. Because there's a big fight to be had. I believe there were several images here. I'm not sure how to scroll. How do I scroll? There we go. Wow. So Rosa Parks delivered remarks in front of Alabama State Capitol. A 54-mile march. We should do something like that. Yeah, Rosa Parks did a lot more than just sit on a bus. This is a very complex movement with a lot of different aspects of it, and they don't teach you necessarily in school the continuity of these fights. Hopefully they do, actually, but I don't know. Wow. Yeah, I just think it's important to see, and it's interesting. So it's a colorized photo here. Of Doris Wilson, 20 years old, resident of Alabama, smoking a cigarette on the front of a military vehicle along the route of the Selma to Montgomery march. It's an unbelievable photograph, and it's so cool to see in color too. Wow. This is the same person many years later. Wow. It's so profound. And these are such amazing people. And there's so many millions of people like this. Okay, next up on the image segment, activist arrested for vandalism after painting Los Angeles crosswalk deemed unsafe. So deemed unsafe by the government. Actually, scientists study this stuff and show that crosswalks are really helpful. Even crosswalk art, where it's like art, is actually increasing of safety. And you can look it up. We've looked it up on the pod in previous research segments. I just wanted to see the image of the crosswalks that were, unsafe. Yeah, I think crosswalks are good, actually. I'm a big pedestrians' rights guy. And lastly, on the image segment, Sylvester Stallone is a painter? What? Let's go. This is a guy from various movies, but his true passion is for painting and making the same facial expression all the time. But I wanted to look at his work because I'm a painter, and I like looking at celebrities' paintings because it's funny. Oh my God, it's the fucking Fox News guy coming to your opening. Tommy Hilfiger. Okay, I'm not getting great vibes from the art. Did he paint this? Did he paint that? Is that a painting of himself, or is that an image next to a painting? It's not bad. It's just okay. I don't know if that's him. Honestly, I feel embarrassed to say I don't know if that's him. I'm not a Stallone head, but it seems like he's painting images of himself, right? This is completely derivative. It's like, it just looks like a mixture of obviously Pollock, Jasper Johns, Rauschenberg, almost like Banksy in some capacity, not really, but I'm sorry, not Banksy, Basquiat in some capacity. Yeah, it's fine. I mean, whatever. It's just the interesting thing of looking at celebrities' art is like, they kind of can publish anything, you know. So they can get any show that they want. So it's not good when there are more photos of the guests, like several photos of the same guests, compared to actually showing the art. This is not good. Look, if you make something like this or your child does, that's great. It's just like it's not like no one needs to see this. It's just very, I mean, it's obviously just like viscerally ugly, but it's not even like a profound ugliness. Wow. This is called male pattern baldness. Okay, never mind. That's actually kind of funny. I'm not going to lie. That kind of wins me over. This one's a little more interesting. This side is a little more interesting. It's hard to really appreciate someone using like photographs or images of themselves looking buff and stuff, but there's a juxtaposition here that's kind of interesting. And, the foreground background on this right panel is kind of interesting in the sense that it's just like a little bit unique looking. The sketchy face with the, more detailed abstract background and so on. It's not titillating to me, but and I do abstract art. I do representational art. I'm not super talented with the realistic art, but I do representational and abstract, mostly abstract. This is mostly abstract, of course. There's some representational aspects here, but and then it's again sort of like a Basquiat vibes in some capacity. I mean, I'm not getting anything. I mean, the heavy primary colors with the black, like the bright yellow, it does seem like they're straight out of the tube, the yellow and red. At least, the greens are maybe not straight out of the tube, but they also might be. Yeah, it's fine. This one's fine. It's not, I wouldn't go to a museum and gravitate towards it, but it's fine. I don't know. And then there's, this kind of interesting person holding a knife or something. There's something going on there. Again, this is fine. And the half frame is kind of interesting. I'm not going to, be, okay, he's got a clock theme. It does seem like he's doing that Basquiat thing of just having the same symbols he repeats. He's like, I'll be the clock guy. Basquiat was the crown guy. I'm the clock guy. But again, it's fine. And the texture is kind of interesting and so on. This one's kind of nice. I don't dislike it. Dream Slaves. Okay. Colorful Lifestyles of Despots. Okay, that's not a good title. That's too descriptive. This is, somewhat nice. The visceral kind of like overwhelming color, but I don't like the heavy primary color. I just don't like his color palette, really, to be honest. And Dream Slaves is just like kind of a little meaningless to me, or like a little kind of childish. Well, it's kind of interesting to have a Life magazine cover. This one's not too bad. And then there's like a mirror. It's kind of interesting. Is Brett Baer just like looking at himself in the mirror? He's like, why didn't I get chosen for this presidential administration? Is this a different Life magazine? Okay. At that point, it's an art concept by Sly. Okay. And this green is disgusting. You can use this green in your art, but it looks disgusting here. And it's a private exhibition, so it's not even, the public's not even invited. They'll probably open it up to the public, I guess. Is this in Palm Beach, Florida? Yeah, okay, so not the most artistic capital of the world. Okay, and again, he's in love with like, I guess 9 o'clock or something, or like what's the deal? Or it's like 12, or it's 11:45, I guess. Is that the thing? This one's kind of nice, but it's just, I don't know. How many times can you do the same thing? Okay. All right, well, I don't like it. I'm just trying to not be like completely negative, so there's some point to me saying anything. Like, this is kind of nice. This left panel, I think, really takes away from it. It just looks like a movie poster, and it just totally detracts from it. This one's photographed weird, where it looks like 2 panels, but yeah, this is just not good. I would not. I don't mind bright colors. It's just the primary colors. And then this green, like, does not go with it. Okay, I get it's uncanny. It's a little funny how, like, it's very obviously underwear, but okay. I mean, I guess it is underwear, right? That's the whole thing about Superman, that he wears underwear, I guess. I don't know. So next up, we have the audiovisual segment. Today, the theme, we don't always have a theme, but today the theme for the audiovisual segment is protesters, or protesting. First up, we have, this is a video of protesters arrested after custard and crumble smeared on crown jewels case in London. So let's check that out.
London had a bit of a sticky situation to clean up today. Police say 4 protesters were arrested after smearing apple crumble and yellow custard on a display case filled with the imperial state crown. The crown is filled with diamonds, sapphires, emeralds, rubies, and pearls that were worn by King.
So if this is illegal, I don't support it, obviously. But if it's not illegal, I do support it because I do think, like, they're not damaging this art. And I don't know exactly what their point was, but it's worthwhile to humiliate monarchies. I mean, it's insane that we still have monarchies in the world. It's 2025. I don't care how much power they have. They have a lot of power, though. It's insane to have monarchies. So if that's their point, that's what I take away from it. But, you know. And also, there's something very artistic about this. Smearing custard on the case, that's beautiful.
Charles during his recent coronation ceremony. Officials at the Tower of London say the crown jewels were not harmed.
Right. Yeah, they never are. Okay, so custard. And next up on the audiovisual segment, wow. I'm trying to lick it. Wow. Okay. Sorry. You didn't have to. I'm sorry, I made you look at my tongue. Okay, next up on the protesting-themed audiovisual segment, we got protesters interrupt Department of Homeland Insecurity Secretary Noem's testimony. This was a wild testimony where she was pressed on, why are you and your agency, why are you locking up and taking the freedoms away from people who are rightfully seeking asylum through a legal process? People are not illegally in this country if they have an open asylum case. And she's like, I guess I'll ask my dad. I'll look into it. Anyways, I'm allowed to say doy, right? Okay. Anyways, let's see what happened because I didn't realize there were protesters here. Let's see.
Let's listen in.
Forward to discussing the worldwide threats that this country faces and the work that President Trump and his administration does each and every day to make America safe again. I'm very privileged and honored today to have my family with me. I'd like to introduce them to you.
Disruptions of congressional business is a violation of law, is a criminal offense under federal law.
So an extremely brave person who seems to be a religious leader of some kind, maybe working with Code Pink, decided to make a statement, which I think is extremely brave and important to bring people's attention to the fact that folks are going into our communities, working for the federal government, and ripping people away from their friends, family, loved ones, jobs, and communities to throw them in cages wrongfully when these people have every right to be free in many cases.
Audience members are advised to take their seats and maintain order.
Yeah, we're just the audience. We're just the audience for this democracy. No, we are participants in this democracy.
The police to remove and arrest the persons creating a disturbance.
Extremely brave. Let us all have the courage that these individuals have to stand up against wrongful abuse of power. Yeah, seriously, get ICE off our streets and stop terrorizing our communities. We have more people behind bars with ICE than ever before, and more people who have never committed a crime behind bars with ICE than ever before, including people who have every right to be free. Open asylum cases, green cards, legal status of various kinds. Citizens. We have citizens shot by Border Patrol. Marimar Martinez shot 7 times with 5 bullets by a Border Patrol agent in Chicago, nowhere near the border. Just for filming them, for protesting, for not violating the law at all. A citizen shot 7 times. Then the Border Patrol agent bragged about it in a group chat and fled with the car to Maine from Illinois to buff it out so no one could tell that he smashed into this woman. And they could try to Darvo her and the charges they had to drop and say that actually, she was not a perpetrator of anything. And that's a citizen. So they're doing it to everyone. They don't care about freedoms, this administration, at all.
Chairman, I'll continue.
Yeah, how about you don't? How about you don't? But you will be held accountable. You will be held accountable. All right, before we move on with the last few segments, there's this important segment called the follow-up segment where I follow up on the previous episode. So let's pull up the previous episode. A couple things to follow up on. First of all, there was a window size issue. You'll notice that the window on this left side does not go all the way to the bottom, and that's the entire time. That was a serious technical issue. A major gap. So I'm sorry. I don't know how that happened. It was technically my fault. I will say, now that I'm in more control of the podcast, I do have to take more accountability, I was told. So I messed up. You know what I mean? It was just there the whole time. I really messed up. I'm really sorry. Okay, and another follow-up?
Point, because I think that would... I don't know the exact rules. Like, my understanding is that some vegans think semen is off limits, right?
Sorry, that was incorrect. I mean, that was basically incorrect. And sorry to also bring that up without any warning. I didn't realize the follow-up was about something so explicit. But no, I said that, we were talking about a complicated set of subjects. But no, that's an extremely fringe, almost like a joke idea. So no, that's not. I shouldn't have phrased it in such a way. We've talked about semen a couple times on the recent private episodes. I'm sorry to say. But if you're into that, then subscribe to the Patreon and the memberships on YouTube on the main channel. Okay, so another follow-up.
I chose to not use that image of myself because it's not that I forgot and then made the thumbnail and then remembered that I had intentionally posed and then didn't want to change the thumbnail. And I'm sure that won't happen again today with the part where I posed for the thumbnail. I'm sure I will remember that I did that. And then, it'll be fine.
It wasn't fine. Okay, next up on the follow-ups. This is important. Oh, yeah, this was embarrassing. You know what I mean? This is embarrassing. This is not even what I was going to follow up. But, I was, half jokingly oh, this guy's painting behind him looks like a Kandinsky. And then I went into whether it looked more like an early or a late Kandinsky. I just want to be clear. I know it's not, it's neither, and it's probably something his family member did. I felt embarrassed that I talked about it for so long. It does not in any way look like an actual Kandinsky. Okay, anyways, that's not even what I was supposed to be following up on. Instead, I wanted to just briefly follow up on this.
This is a fun one.
Carol.
We're here for you.
Oh, wow. What's her name? Her name is Carol, actually. So it's funny that I got her name wrong. I didn't get her name wrong. I just didn't know her name. So just a kind of a brief correction. I did know her name. I just didn't remember it. So...
Well, I guess it is kind of fair to ask, what really knowledge actually means, though, and what it means to know something, and whether, as Socrates is said to have said in Plato's Phaedo, that our learning is nothing else than recollection. So, in a sense, whenever we know anything, maybe it's a type of recollection, but only in a sense. And another follow-up.
that is just had a bunch of suggestions listed on it. I forget the name right now because
and this is the name of the website where I got my improv suggestions, but I have to give credit where credit's due. It's teambuilding.com/blog/improv prompts. And even though I have now shifted to using a Google Doc, I did just take all their improv suggestions and put it in the Google Doc. So teambuilding.com. Thank you very much for the improv suggestions. We'll be doing one in a little bit. And lastly, on the follow-up segment, it was pretty late in the episode.
that always kill, Donna. It doesn't have to always kill. Sometimes it's just about giving people something to chew on and something to think about. And I really think I gave a lot to chew on. Oh, we were talking about chewing last time. What was that about? Like the milk segment or something? No, it was like about...
No, it was...
I didn't get her name wrong.
It was actually here where we were talking about chewing, so I just wanted to kind of wrap that up correctly. It's important that we don't get these things wrong.
Always very funny and kind of gives you something to think about. Gives you something to chew on, unlike ice cream.
Yeah, so it was at the end of the improv segment, which was ice cream related. It wasn't about milk. It was about ice cream, but pretty close. Pretty close. So that's the follow-up segment. How many podcasts do you know that do that? You know? Pretty cool. Okay, now I check the mailbag. A lot of podcasts do this. You can write into verbaljournalpodcast@gmail.com. But no one did. So that's fantastic. We don't need to read any mail. Great. So now we get to the moment that you've all been waiting for, which is the improv segment, where I show off some solo improv skills that are one of a kind. So I have, as I mentioned, I have a list of suggestions here, and they're numbered 1 through 242. So what we do is we go to a random number generator, okay, and 1 to 242, and we generate. Wow, 26. Okay, that's kind of quick. Celebrity Secret Santa. Oh, that's good. That's very good. Okay. Yeah, so let's get into it. Okay. Ready? Okay, we make sure that goes off the screen. Put the lights on. Put the lights on. Put the lights on. Is that too much? Yeah, that's too much. Okay. Put the lights on. Oh, yeah, okay. There we go. Okay. I sneezed and fuck, it's still wet. Okay. Just hide that arm. Fuck. Okay. So, I mean, where are you supposed to sneeze? Okay, no, okay, hold on. So, improv, okay. Hey, welcome to the Verbal Journal Podcast Improv Productions. Thanks so much for coming out, everyone. We got a nice little crowd here in the audience today. Thank you so much. I see we got a lot of our normal people, and a lot of our abnormal people. Isn't that right? Okay, so can I have a suggestion from the audience? Yes, thank you. Celebrity Secret Santa. Thank you. And you sound normal today. Okay, so let's do it. Celebrity Secret Santa. Let's go. Okay, ready? Oh yeah, no, Tom, please come in. Yeah, no, you're right on time. We're sitting down right now. You have your gift. Oh my gosh, I can't wait. Thank you so much. So, why don't Rihanna, would you like to give Tom the gift that you got for him? I know you said you were ready, right? Great. Wow. Oh my God. Is that your line of beauty products? That's amazing. And those were made where? Oh, wow. Tom, you do use makeup, right? Yeah, you use a lot of makeup. Yeah, for that one film that you were in. This is embarrassing. I'm so sorry. We've known each other for decades. This is embarrassing, Tom. The Mission Impossible. Of course, you had a ton of makeup on, so that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Rihanna. I say on Tom's behalf, and I'm thanking you just because I'm hosting this event, and I don't want people to get gifts that they don't like. So that's fantastic. Well, Tom, who did you have for Secret Santa? Is that right? Okay. Yeah. Were you two ever married? No? Okay, I don't know. I don't follow your personal life, just because we're friends for decades. Okay, well, why don't you give Michelle what you got her? Okay. Tom. Not everyone's into that. Come on. You can't give Michelle Obama a Scientology book. No, I am going to stand up for you, Miss Obama. Thank you. Because, no, he does this every year. That's the thing you don't understand. No, don't stand up for him. He does this every year. Tom, you can't get someone a gift that's like something that's more of a suggestion than a gift, right? A gift is something that they would want. No, I'm not even going to let you give that to her. You want it? You're being polite. You're not a Scientologist. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but you're just being polite. Fine. Fine, Tom. Give her the book. Oh, it's by L. Ron Hubbard? Really? Thanks for telling me that. They're all by L. Ron Hubbard. They're all by L. Ron Hubbard, Tom. Have you not noticed that by now? And Michelle, who did you have? Who did you have for this old Secret Santa get together? Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. That's a little bit awkward because I know Miss Macron is also a first lady, or obviously you're a former first lady. I don't know if they call them first ladies in France, do they, Miss Macron? I don't know what you're saying because I don't speak French. Okay. So, Miss Obama, what did you get Miss Macron for Christmas? Was she supposed to carry these vegetables home with her? Yeah, I understand you put them in a box, but she doesn't want a box full of vegetables. I mean, she probably has a long flight. What is it with you and vegetables, Ms. Obama? Okay. Whatever. Si vous plaît, I guess. Okay, and Miss Macron, you obviously had Rihanna as your secret as your person. So what did you get Rihanna? You don't have to explain. I don't speak French. Just take the gift out. Wow. Okay, so that's a PS5. Rihanna, PS5? Okay. All right, we got a good gift out of it. Great. So someone got a good gift, and I guess the makeup was kind of good, except it's all colors that I don't think Tom is going to be using, but and he shouldn't be using, frankly. Tom, yeah, I mean, come on, man. I know you think you're uncancelable, but at a certain point, there's some shades that you can't be putting on your face. Unless you're preparing for a new role I don't know about. And what did you all get me? Did I not? Oh, I didn't set it up correctly. Okay, well, if you all would sign this foam roller, that would be fantastic. So why don't you all just sign the foam roller, and you could just kind of give that to me, and I will roll my muscles with your fame. Thank you. Thank you. I understand it's curved. Thank you. Please don't sign over Rihanna's signature, Michelle. Ms. Obama, I'm sorry. Are you kidding me? And we're done. And scene. So, the thing about improv is it's hard to do on your own. But I feel that I'm breaking new ground by kind of exploring the terrain of solo improv on this pod. So, they're not all funny. Sometimes improv is just about kind of getting your brain going, you know, and giving you something to chew on. I will say I got distracted halfway through that scene because I was like, whoa, what are the odds that it happened to be Christmas related? And we're like 2 weeks before Christmas right now, a week and a half, and it happened to be Christmas related. So what are the odds of that actually? So we have Santa in one of them. How many times does Santa show up? Only once. Okay? Christmas doesn't show up. Xmas. Jesus. Wait, I said Jews by accident. Jesus. That says a lot that I tried to type in Jesus and I typed in Jews. I guess that shows that we're not so different. Wow. So literally the only one Christmas related happened to come up out of 242 options. Wow. I think it's defusing a bomb. Okay. So thanks a lot, teambuilding.com. Wonder how many other issues there are. That's probably why I've been doing poor improv. Just kidding. I've been doing great. Okay, so fantastic episode. And now I'm going to thank the patrons and the members. If you want to be one of them, I would appreciate your support, but no worries if not. And if you are supporting me, you can stop at any time. I'll start with the members on the What's Therapy channel, because they all get the same thing as the patrons. Thank you, Adam on Hook, Riri, The Carbon Creed, The Real Colycraft, Somewhat Entertainment, Jasmine, Simply Snaps, Jifa, Hollow Moon, and Pit Inhabitant. And over on the Patreon, thank you so much to Andreas, Not Dirty Harry, Bean Machine, Gripe Juice, Majid, PC, Janie, Sasha, Muad, JCS, Merrick, Ben's Life, Brandon, Felix, Marcy Bun, Stepan, Coolbean, Spaghetti Gal, Isabel, Milky Way, Ryan, Grace, Garrett, Simply Snaps, Caffeine, Parker, Dakota, Aiden, Noah, Burrow, Perpetually Jackson, A, Icelack, MK, Matt, X, Noah, Anastasios, King Margot, Tom, Hugh, Redgrove, Elemency, Platinum, Sarge, Rabbit Dog, Andrew, Ian, Russ, Irene, MJ, Ludwig, Ryan, Madeline, Brent, Molly, Ashley, Scott, Gunther, Thulu, Source, Rex, Miles, and User. Appreciate y'all. Really appreciate the support. And honestly, if you can't support the channel financially, thank you so much anyways for watching. And I really appreciate having an audience. I don't take it for granted. It's extremely cool. And I didn't really expect it to go this well. So far, so good. And I get to express myself and some people connect with it. And that's really profound. So thank you so much for watching. I'll be private in the next episode just for the patrons and the members. So feel free to join if you'd like to see episode 141 and 142. And I will catch you on the flippity flop. Okay, so have a good one and keep on keeping on. Okay, bye. This is a podcast.